I realized I had made a mistake with the second word I said. But it was too late. You can't take back something like that, especially in front of his boss. My name is and I'm 32 years old and from Fort Worth, Texas. This is the story of how a dumb joke at a work party turned my marriage upside down. So last Friday, Troy, my 37-year-old husband, invited me to his company's end-of-year party. To be honest, I wasn't very excited to go. These corporate events are always awkward, and I never know what to say to his coworkers. But Troy insisted it was necessary and that it would look good on him if I attended. Okay, I'll play the supportive wife for one night. I thought I spent extra time doing my hair and makeup, putting on that green dress he likes, and trying to look put together, whatever that means. But as soon as we arrived, I knew it was going to be one of those nights where all I could do was smile and nod. The first hour went well. We mingled and played. How do you know Troy? I maintained my best demeanor throughout the conversation with his coworkers. I had one drink, then another. And by the time dinner arrived, I was starting to feel better. Then he arrived, his boss, Mr. Riek, whom Troy constantly complains about at home. Troy says HEK is always on my back, and he is never satisfied with what I do. I had pictured Mr. Riek as a grumpy, gray-haired micromanager, but he was surprisingly young, perhaps in his late 40s, dressed sharply, and the type of man who commands a room without even trying. I could immediately see why Troy was always concerned about him. We're all sitting around this big round table, me, Troy, his boss, and a few other co-workers, laughing and talking about holiday plans, when the conversation turns to football. Troy is a die-hard Cowboys fan, he lives and breathes it. But Mr. Riek turns out to be an Eagles fan, and if you know anything about football, you know Cowboys and Eagles fans do not get along. They're going back and forth, poking fun at each other. But I could tell Troy was getting that look. It's that look he gives when he's losing an argument but refuses to admit it. That's when I did it. I leaned forward, grinned and said, "Well, if you spend as much time at home as you do defending the Cowboys, maybe you'd win something for once." The table fell silent. Even I felt it, as if the air had been sucked from the room. Mr. Riek let out a loud ha, slapped the table and stated, "I like her. She has a point." But Troy did not laugh. He didn't even look at me. He just sat back in his chair, his gaze fixed on the table as if he were counting to 10 in his head. I knew I should have stopped there. I knew it, but it wasn't me. I had to double down. Maybe if you put that much effort into our finances, we wouldn't be fighting over the cable bill every month. I added with a snicker, thinking I was being cute. Crickets. His boss just sipped his drink, and one of his co-workers gave me the awkward yikes smile. I felt a tap beneath the table. Troy's knee bumping mine was his little shut-up signal. I ignored it. "Don't look at me like that," I said, tilting my head at him as if he were acting dramatic. "I am just joking. You understand I'm joking." "No, Danielle," he replied quietly. "You're doing too much. Your voice is low but sharp like a blade." He returned to eating, chewing as if he were grinding rocks between his teeth. Nobody at the table said anything, just forks scraping plates. I tried to brush it off as if it were no big deal, but deep down I knew I had pushed too far. The remainder of dinner was uncomfortable. Troy rarely spoke to me, and when he did, it was with brief, one-word responses like yes and I'm fine. I knew I should have apologized, but I did not. I was still convinced that I was correct. He was overreacting, but after dinner, Mr. Riek brought it up again. "Man, Danielle, you're funny," he said, patting Troy on the back. "She certainly keeps you on your toes." "Huh?" Troy didn't even pretend to laugh. He just nodded and said, "Yep." That's when I realized it wasn't just about the joke. It was about respect, and I had just embarrassed him in front of the one person he'd been trying to impress all year. After dinner, we were all supposed to go to the bar area for drinks. Troy didn't even ask if I wanted to stay. He simply grabbed his coat, turned to me and said, "Let's leave." I smiled at everyone, waved and said, "Oh, so it's bedtime, huh?" Nobody laughed as they tried to play it off. We didn't say anything the entire ride home. He was driving aggressively, foot heavy, eyes forward, jaw tight. I sat there scrolling through my phone, pretending not to care, but I kept glancing at him out of the corner of my eye. When we pulled into the driveway, I attempted to break the ice. Are you really gonna be mad about that? It was only a joke. He sat there for a second, hands still on the wheel, breathing slowly and deeply, as if he was giving himself one last chance to calm down, before turning to me, looking me dead in the eyes, and saying, "Nah, Danielle, it's not the joke. It's you. I'm tired of this." He got out, slammed the door, and went inside. He didn't wait for me, didn't hold the door open like he normally does, and simply left me sitting there. I sat in the car for a minute, half angry, half perplexed. What did I do wrong? It wasn't too serious. It was a joke. Men frequently make such jokes with each other. Why does it vary when I do it? I walked in still defensive and ready to argue. However, he was not in the living room. He was upstairs. I followed him, still in heels, calling for him. "Troy, are you really gonna act like this?" I found him in our bedroom, packing a bag. "A bag? What are you doing now?" I asked, hands on hips. "Where are you going?" He zipped it up and looked at me, his eyes tired but steady. "I am done, Danielle." "What are you done with?" I laughed, thinking he was lying. "Oh, come on, you're not going anywhere with a joke." But he didn't respond. He grabbed his bag, brushed past me, and went downstairs. I followed him, still trying to win the argument. "You're being ridiculous," I said, still in that sarcastic tone. Arms crossed. "I'm not chasing you, Troy. If you want to be stupid, be stupid." He got to the door, looked back at me, and said the words that finally hit me. "You never know when to stop. Danielle, that's the problem." Then he walked out. I stood there, still thinking he'd come back in a few minutes. But when I heard his car start and saw the taillights disappear down the street, that's when it hit me. He wasn't playing. I stood there at the front door for a while, just staring at the empty street, like he'd turn around any second. I even pulled out my phone, half expecting a come-outside text, but nothing. Just silence. I shut the door, locking it like that meant something, and leaned against it, arms crossed, biting the inside of my cheek. He'll be back, he always comes back. We've had arguments worse than this, and he's never left for more than an hour. I went upstairs still in that stupid green dress, heels clicking against the floor, and sat on the edge of the bed. The side of the bed looked so empty. The pillow was still dented from where he'd slept the night before. I stared at it, but instead of feeling sad, I felt annoyed. He's so dramatic. Grabbing my phone, I texted him, "Where you at?" No response. Okay, so now he wants to play hardball. I set the phone down and got up, walking into the closet where I saw that space where his bag used to be. He really took his duffel bag like he's going on a trip or something. How ridiculous. My first thought was I should call his mom. Oh yeah, he hates that. He always says I run to his mom like I'm tattling on him. But I didn't do it. I knew if I did, she'd probably side with he, and I wasn't about to hear a lecture tonight. So instead I called my sister Rachel. She answered on the third ring. "What's up?" I sighed, flopping onto the bed. "Troy's being stupid." "Oh, what did you do this time?" she said, laughing a little. "What did I do?" I sat up offended. "Why do you always assume it's me?" "Because it's usually you." "Danielle," she said bluntly, "what happened?" I told her everything. The party, the joke, the whole scene at the table. I made it sound like it was nothing, of course, just a little playful back and forth, no big deal. I even threw in a few "he's so sensitive" comments for good measure. "Girl," Rachel's voice got really quiet. "You said that in front of his boss?" "Yeah, so it's not like I lied." I shot back, annoyed that she wasn't taking my side. He's always talking about how stressed out he is at work. So maybe if he handled things differently, he wouldn't be so upset with Danielle. Rachel cut me off, voice sharper this time. "You disrespected him in front of his boss. Men don't play about that. You made him look small." I sat there silent for a second. "Hey, but it was just a joke." "Was he laughing?" she asked. "No, then it wasn't a joke." Her words hung in the air, heavy. I hate when she says stuff that makes too much sense. I changed the subject anyway. "He left, packed a bag, and everything." Wait. He left? Like left? "Yep," I said, tossing a pillow across the room, acting like he's done or something. "I'm not chasing him, though. That is on him. Throw a fit. That's on him." "Girl, you might want to fix this," she said. "Itchy K is not the type to bluff like that. Itchy K will be back." I muttered. But for the first time I didn't really believe it that night. I didn't sleep much. Every little sound outside had me checking my phone, thinking it was him. But it wasn't. The hours dragged on. Midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. Still no texts, no calls. I finally texted him again, something petty because that's what I do. "Oh, so you're just gonna ghost me now?" Real mature Troy. No response by 3 a.m. I was pacing the house, muttering under my breath like I was in a full-blown argument with him. Except he wasn't even there. I replayed everything in my head. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. But then I'd flip it back. No, he's being soft. He's a grown man. If he can dish it, he can take it. I ended up falling asleep on the couch, waking up to the sound of birds chirping and my phone vibrating on the coffee table. For a second I thought it was him. But nope, just a message from Rachel. "Any word from Troy?" I didn't even answer. I got up, stretched and checked my phone's call log. No missed calls, no texts. I told myself I wouldn't reach out again. He'll come back. But as the hours passed, that confidence started to crack. By noon I was standing at the kitchen counter, tapping my nails on the countertop, debating whether to call him. I didn't want to. I hate being the one to call first, but that pride started to feel really heavy when I noticed his car wasn't in the driveway. Where did he go? I called. It rang twice, then went straight to voicemail. "Oh, that's what we're doing now," I muttered, shaking my head. Fine, 2 months passed and nothing. I started to wonder if he was staying with one of his friends. My first thought was Brandon, his childhood best friend. But I knew better. Brandon's single and his house is like a frat house. Troy wouldn't get any peace there. Maybe his brother Marcus. I called Marcus. "Hey Danielle," he answered, sounding casual. "Hey, is Troy with you?" I asked, trying to sound nonchalant. "Nope, I haven't seen him." "Why?" "Oh, no reason, just checking." I lied, chewing on my thumbnail. "You good?" he asked, like he knew something was off. Yeah, I'm fine." I hung up before he could ask more questions. At this point I was starting to feel that panic. Not full-on panic, but that creeping feeling in the back of your mind when you realize you might have underestimated something. It wasn't until later that night that he finally called. I answered on the first ring, trying to sound like I didn't care. "Wow, finally remembered you have a wife," I said, leaning on the counter with one hand. "Danielle," he said, voice calm but cold, "we need to talk." "Oh, so now you want to talk? Where were you last night?" "Huh? Don't do that," he said, cutting me off. "I'm not playing games with you. I'm the one playing games. You're the one who stormed out like a teenager." "I stormed out because I'm tired. Danielle, tired of being embarrassed by your silence," said. I didn't have a comeback for that one. "Look, I'm not coming back home tonight," he said. "I'm staying at my mom's for a bit. I need space." Space? I laughed, but it wasn't a real laugh, more like a defense mechanism. "Space for what? You act like I cheated on you. But you break me down as if you want me to feel small. I'm no longer living like that." My chest tightened. "Wow, now I'm the bad guy," I said, leaning fully into the victim role. "You're leaving our marriage because of a joke." He exhaled. I could hear him rubbing his face, which he always does when he is frustrated. "This isn't just about last night," Danielle explained quietly. "It is everything. It's the way you talk to me and act as if you're always right. I can't win with you. I am done trying." My heart began pounding. "You're really doing this?" I asked, my voice cracking. "You're really destroying our marriage?" "No, you threw it away," he said. And his words hit harder than I expected. "I'm simply walking away from the mess." I heard the call end before I could respond. I sat stunned, the phone still pressed to my ear, as if he might return the call. He did not. I sat there for a long time, holding the phone in my hand and staring at the call-ended screen, as if it might change. My throat tightened, but I did not cry. I don't cry about things like this. He will be back. He always comes back. But this time felt different. I called him back, got voicemail, and then called again. I wasn't planning to leave a message. I am not that desperate. I scrolled to Rachel's name and hovered over it before changing my mind. I knew what she was going to say anyway. She'd hit me with that, "Well, you did kinda push him too far this time" speech, and I didn't have the energy to listen, so I sat alone. By the second day, I could feel a shift in my chest. You know how it feels when you start replaying everything and actually hearing what the other person said. His words echoed in my head like a song I couldn't stop listening to. "You break me down like you want me to feel small. I'm no longer living like that. I am done trying." I despised those words because, for the first time, I couldn't transform them into something that made me happy. I couldn't blame him for being overly emotional, dramatic, or immature. It wasn't him this time. It was me, and I didn't call. My pride would not let me. Instead, I did something worse. I made a post on Facebook. It's funny how people think they're the victim when they've always been the problem. "If you want, you can stay away. I'm okay over here." I threw in a selfie for good measure, all dressed up as if I had somewhere important to go when, in reality, I hadn't left the house in 48 hours. I sat back and watched the comments come in. "Girl, you deserve better. If he can't take you at your worst, he doesn't deserve you at your best." Validation on demand is exactly the energy I was looking for. A couple of my friends also texted me, and I ate it up like dessert. "Yeah, I'm fine. I'm always good." But on the third night, the phone was too quiet. There was no "Where are you?" There are no texts or missed calls. It was as if I did not exist that night. I broke. I found myself staring at our wedding photo on the mantel, standing there as if it were a crime scene. My smile appeared forced in the photo. I couldn't get away from the fact that his eyes appeared tired. I never noticed it before. But now it was obvious. Was he tired too? I sat on the couch, holding the old wedding photo in my lap and turning it over. The date was scribbled in Sharpie on the back. On April 22nd, 2016, I ran my thumb over it, attempting to convince myself that none of this was my fault. I gave him everything, right? I cooked, cleaned, and stayed even when he had nothing. I kept it together, but the other voice in my head was louder this time. One that didn't need Rachel or anyone else to check me. It whispered, "You never apologized." I ignored it. I flipped the picture back over and set it on the coffee table. I did not owe him an apology. He overreacted. He, a grown man, could have stayed and talked it out. But he fled like a child. That's on him. That's what I told myself. But by the fifth night, I knew I'd messed up. No texts, no phone calls, not even a "How are the kids?" When I received the text, I knew it was serious. Even when we were arguing, Troy always checked on the kids. I knew he loved them above all else. So when I didn't hear from him, my heart raced like it hadn't before. I called him back and left a voicemail. I attempted to sound strong, but my voice cracked halfway through. "Hello. I was just calling to see how you were doing. The kids miss you, so please call me back." Or whatever. Click. I despised how weak I sounded. I despised how real it was beginning to feel. A week later, I was served divorce papers right on my front porch, handed to me by a random guy in a polo shirt like it was any other Tuesday. I grabbed them out of his grasp and slammed the door. "Unbelievable," I muttered, tearing them open. "He's doing this over a ridiculous argument." My eyes skimmed the papers, but I didn't read them thoroughly. It did not feel real. People argue all the time. They say things they don't mean and they move on, but Troy does not appear to. A month passed, and I convinced myself it was all for show. A power play to entice me to chase him. This is classic Troy. He will cave until I see her. I was scrolling through Facebook one night, and there she was, tagged in a picture with him, some girl named Leanne, blonde, skinny, and one of those I wake up at 5:00 and to do yoga types. I clicked on her profile. It was wide open. Rookie mistake. Her bio was blessed beyond measure. I rolled my eyes so hard I got dizzy. But then I saw it. A picture of them at a restaurant. He had his arm around her big smile. A bigger smile than I'd seen from him in years. She had a caption under it too. "Thankful for this man every day. This man." My chest started burning. I sat up straight, scrolling through every single post, every tag, every little heart emoji. It was like digging through my own grave. This woman, Leanne, was living the life I built. She was eating the food I taught him to like. She was reaping the benefits of my hard work. He didn't even wait. He didn't pause, he didn't grieve, he just moved on. I clicked on his page and scrolled through his posts. Nothing. He never even mentioned the divorce. Not one post about being free or finding peace, just silence. But that picture on her page, that picture said everything. I sat there, jaw clenched so tight I could feel it in my temples. My first instinct was to post another Facebook status. Something slick, something petty. It's always the healed ones that forget who helped them heal. But I'm good over here. Trust that I hit post and watched the likes roll in. It felt good for a second, feel-good validation on demand just like before. But that feeling didn't last as long this time. By midnight I deleted it. Not because I regretted it. I just didn't want him to see it. I realized something sitting there that night. Troy wasn't gonna see it. He wasn't checking for me, he didn't care. Leanne was laughing at something he said while I was watching. Through a screen. The next day I called my lawyer. I wasn't about to lose quietly. If he was gonna move on that fast, then I was gonna make it as hard as possible. You want to act happy. Troy, cool. Let's see how happy you are after I get half. I no longer desired his return. I did not desire him at all. However, I would be untruthful if I claimed that I did not wish for him to experience it. If I was unable to have him, I would ensure that his new, blessed beyond measure girlfriend was fully informed of the agreement she had entered into.